Mommytrack Daddy Whispers Podcast is now called Birth Agni Podcast.
What is a natural birth? Nothing like you know it. You're listening to Mommytrack Daddy Whispers Podcast, Bite-Sized Pregnancy Series, where we discuss the major parts of pregnancy so that you are able to make informed decisions throughout it. In this episode, we are not trying to give you education. In this episode, we are taking you back in time based on references from 2 books to show you how birth was in its most natural form. This episode is a perspective. Long, long back, when there were just villages, humans lived in small connected communities, surrounded by trees and fresh air. Communities established themselves on small, fertile lands. They thrived working and staying together, celebrating personal festivals and achievements. Childbirth was a community affair. When a mother went into labor, women gathered. They sang songs. Midwives chanted and whispered magical words into the ears of the laboring mother. They encouraged her to realize the power that lies deep within her to birth. She could trust herself because she was in fact surrounded by examples of that. The herbal healers handled complicated births. Labor was managed at home with a support system. Birth in these communities was not looked at as an event. Less so in the medicalized language, a risky event. It was celebrated. It was looked at as a process, a sacred process that went on until the baby and the mother were able to establish themselves in their new roles. This information has been inspired from the book Reclaiming Childbirth as a Rite of Passage. It takes us back into those days when birth was looked at as a normal thing, as a normal physiological behavior. In another similar book, Birth Territory and Midwifery Guardianship, it takes us on a journey of 3 births. One of a woman birthing in a setting unknown and new and filled with fear for her. And a monkey mother delivering her baby in her natural environment. And third, of a tribal woman birthing at home. The birth experience of the last 2 contexts are shown to have provided the women a sense of extreme consciousness that they experience starting pregnancy, when they are witnessing the miracles of nature within themselves. A non-ordinary, as the text says, a non-ordinary consciousness engulfs them if they are allowed to quietly, with positive affirmations, allowed to go into labor in tune with their body clues, surrounded by a team she trusts to help her sail, labor, and allow interventions only when she feels she needs help. In an environment like that, a sense of trust and safety is natural. And it is natural for animals in their own world. It makes immense sense to believe in the fact that birth is an untaught natural occurrence. Natural birth, based on these examples, is tied to the environment in which it happens. An environment of safety and trust to allow labor and delivery to progress naturally, to allow the hormones to work naturally. All of pregnancy and birth is run by your brain and hormones working in beautiful tandem with each other. So how you feel and the environment you are in has a natural effect on your birth. Natural birth for me is where a woman finds a quiet, assuring, safe, and trustworthy place where people around her are in tune into how she is feeling and they let her guide her journey. That, based on my perspective, is a natural birth. A vaginal birth, as we know it, is called a natural birth. Or whenever we say a natural birth, we mean a vaginal birth. A vaginal birth, of course, is a nature's way of bringing new life into the world. A natural birth, according to me, takes both the mother and the baby into picture in terms of their participation in birth. So based on my perspective, a natural birth is a broader perspective encompassing the nature's way of bringing babies into the world. As a birth educator trainee, all of this mesmerizes me. So when I said in the start that it is nothing like you know it, I wanted to emphasize on how your body works, how birth naturally progresses, and that it is dependent on the environment and a sense of participation in the laboring mother. In another text, a perspective on the cultural evolution of natural birth published in The Lancet by Margaret E. MacDonald beautifully describes it. Natural birth is not what it used to be. During my research on the newly regulated midwifery profession in the province of Ontario, Canada, in the late 1990s, Leigh, a 36-year-old midwifery client, had this to say about natural birth. I think that natural is a stupid word. What does it mean in this society? I just wanted to have my birth. You know what I mean? I wanted to be the core who was making the decisions, or we were making the decisions. I did not want to have a natural birth. I just wanted to be able to trust myself in the experience of being pregnant and the experience of giving birth. And I want to be able to do that with raising my children. And just to add to that definition of natural birth, a natural birth can be positive. A vaginal birth may or may not be positive, depending on how a woman felt during her birth. Similarly, a cesarean birth can be a positive birth experience when the mother is clearly explained why an invasive procedure is being used. And she, in all her senses, knows that that is the best for her and her baby. We are at the end of this episode. This episode presents my understanding of a natural birth. This is just my perspective, supported by various textbooks, researchers, yes. But all in all, in a holistic way, the way it is presented, it is my perspective. If my views sound interesting, you are interested in a pregnancy series, birth and postpartum episodes, do subscribe. Follow. Drop me a rating on Spotify or Apple. Like this episode on whichever platform you're listening to us from. Next, on the seasonal episodes, we're going to have a discussion on exercise during pregnancy and early postpartum. Thereon, on the Bite-Size Pregnancy series, we have an episode on how to prepare for natural birth. With that, I'll say bye-bye. Know that the world is no longer our natural habitat. For now, we need to look inwards and find the earliest signs of nature within ourselves. You have all the signs within you, deep embedded in your ancestral DNA. Believe in it and let it be your guide. Remember, you got the power. Stay tuned.